All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Gussein, and I'm a founder of Unison web application. It's available on unisonofficial.com, and yeah, I will put the link into the description of this video. Here I'm just trying to record sort of webinar. It's casual recording. I'm not sure whether I will be satisfied at the end with the quality and like with recordings and etc. But I'll try my best. It's not something I do frequently. I just started, so yeah, hopefully I will be better and better each time I'm recording. So yeah. And considering like that English is my second language, I will try to sound smooth as I can, and yeah, hopefully you'll understand the main idea and what I'm trying to explain in this video. I suspect that this video gonna be quite long, mainly because I'm not only gonna discuss the general idea of this application, but also I'll try to explain how basically everything works here. And you don't need to watch the whole video. I will probably split this video in many different pieces, so you can watch only something that you mostly interested at a certain point of time. But yeah, I will try my best to cover everything I know about this application, because I created it. Of course, there are some might be like some inaccuracies and some bugs along the way while I'm recording, but it's a web application. It's not that quite mature, although I spent like 3 years developing it, but it's just getting attraction to the users. So I'll try my best to to explain how really it works, and I will just hope that everything will be smooth. So yeah, but I just want to mention that it's not necessary to watch this video or any of my videos on this YouTube channel, simply because if you like to read and you consume information more easily just by reading, not watching something, you can easily do this just by going to the section about of this application. Here I just explain the main idea, and here you can just check it out, everything you need to know. But yeah, I will start, of course, with general idea what it is and why I created this application and so on. So yeah, the application is called Unison, and the main idea of this application that it allows musicians, composers, or just music engravers, maybe music publishers, to generate music images, or rather music scores, just by typing their description. So for example, you just you type treble clef and it will render stuff with treble clef. I will show a bit later, of course, how it works in action. So if you like to write and you like to work in a flow, this is probably what you're looking for, because not so many applications on the market can allow you to do this. And the reason why I created this application is because I wanted to achieve this experience where I'm not distracted by anything. The only thing I have an editor where I'm typing, and I just press a button, basically render preview, like you see here on the screen, and it renders what I had in mind. So I think it's quite unique. Although there are similar applications like Lillipond. It's sort of an extension of LaTeX application, but yeah, I would say that it allows. I think that Lillipond requires more knowledge about technical aspects of how you can run this application and stuff like that. So you gotta it's kind of have deeper learning curve, so to speak. But yeah, I will try to explain why my application is favorable in that regard, because I tried to create this tool for musicians, not for programmers, because it's quite similar to programming language, but not really, because I'm using like natural language, and all those commands that you see on the screen are quite straightforward. Um, they're quite explicit, and anyone who familiar with music terms and like agreed terms that musician over the world uses, you will definitely understand how it works, and you can even intuitively write the text. So yeah, I think this is what comes to general idea. I put some notes so I don't forget anything. So yeah, right now I think it's time to talk about how you can ask some questions if something unfamiliar or you struggle with something. You can go to the section that's called links, and you can visit either our Reddit thread. You can also leave some questions in the comments on my YouTube channel that's dedicated to Unison, and you can ask questions there. Maybe I can help you. I will definitely try, and of course maybe some other people also might help you as well. Also, there is a Telegram channel. It's more about like news and what's new in Unison, some updates and etc. So yeah, I think if you're interested, you can subscribe to Telegram channel as well. This link, it's my personal blog. You can read more about me, so you would know who I am and who created this product if you're really interested. So yeah. Also, of course, if you want to reach out like official support email, you can of course write here. I'll try to reach you out as soon as I can, and help with anything you with anything you need. So yeah, I think this is what comes to communication channels between you and me. All right, so I think right now we can discuss like the whole application. So once you started, once you entered the system, there are certain links, like you can read about Unison. You can also learn about the pricing. It's not that expensive in my opinion, considering the fact that you can try 30 days for free. You don't need to add any card. You can cancel anytime, and also there is a sandbox that when you can try to type something and render some music score without even entering the system. So this is also cool. So you can start free trial. All you need to do is just your email, maybe username, of course, and set up the password. I tried to make this setup as quick as I can. I mean, in terms of like user experience, you can easily and quite fast to register in the system. So yeah. So I think that's it. We can log in. Let's sign into the system. By the way, I'm just testing it on local environment, just because sometimes while I'm recording, network doesn't work the best for some reason. So just trying to minimize all the risks. So let's get started. So I'm gonna sign in into the account. And you will see, the first thing you will see, it's a panel where you can type your project name and just add it. All right, so let's start. Let's call it like my project. All right, let's add it. And once you created a new project, you redirect it to the Unison editor here. And you can see that there are 4 tabs. I will try to explain what each of them, I will try to describe each of those tabs. so you can understand how it works. And yeah, so all right, so let's start with this text area, right? You can see that we automatically, once we created a new project, we selected, there is a first page that's selected, and you can edit it. So let's go to this tab, and you can see that you can work only at one page at a time. So let's say we can add a new page, and it's automatically redirects us to the Unison editor here. So yeah, that's kind of like convenient, I would say. So let's add a third page, and also if you notice that you can select and double click on a certain page, and it will also redirect you to the text area. But it's quite explicitly tells you that you can add a new page, let's say in the middle. Like for example here, you can add a new page after the page number 2. You can also delete page number 2, let's say. It's deletes it immediately, so you gotta be careful. But maybe in the future I'll change it, but right now I just don't want to deal with those things. I'm just trying to achieve simplicity and trying to avoid all the things that can annoy users. So yeah, but we'll see. I mean, if it will turn out, that people accidentally delete pages quite a lot, maybe I will add some restore button or a timer that during which you can restore the page. So nevertheless, we can, I think, continue. Yeah, there is a third button here, let's say, where you can preview all the pages. Right now you can see 3 empty pages, so this is how it looks. All right, let's go back. All right, so here we go. Let's delete those pages, just because I'm trying to be more specific here. So let's try like typing treble clef, and when we press the button render preview, we'll see that we have a stuff with a treble clef on it. So yeah, it works perfectly fine. There is of course some page line length that you can can configure. I will explain it a little later, because like there are a lot of things that you can configure here, like background color, text color, like different paddings, and you can also fix the height of the page, because right now it's sort of extendable. The more you add content here, the bigger page becomes. So yeah, and let's go to the action tab. Sorry, here we also can preview all our pages. Also here we can save all pages. We can exit the editor, of course, and we have got here like 3 formats which we can download. For example, you can download all your scores as a SVG. It will be downloaded like zip folder. Also, you can do in a similar way PDF files and also TXT files. TXT means like you will download the text part of your scores. And also you can set up the width for your editor depending on on your screen maybe, or density of pixels on your screen and different other things. So it adds up flexibility on your page. So sorry, in your editor. So yeah, I think this is the main thing I wanted to say about these 4 tabs. Let's back to the text area. For example, there is another features that I want to mention. For example, like let's say you want to set up a background color. There is after completion, which is very, very convenient, since Unison language is created in a way that it's quite explicit, because like we're trying to avoid all the special characters. We're just trying to be as explicit as possible. Like if you want to change the background color, you just type background color, but at the same time those commands might seem quite long. So this is why after completion it's kind of like really helpful. So you can just type background color, and let's say you wanna make it white, and once we render, you see that it will render the page with background color as white. So all right, so let's go back to the, let's say, treble clef, and let's add some notes. And once we render this stuff, we can navigate between this image and the text, because it's very difficult to adjust something or edit when you have large text. I know that because I worked with LaTeX that I mentioned before, which works in a similar way, and there is no a navigation system between the text and the image it renders. So I think it's really important to have one. So I will just show how it works. For example, you have a treble clef, and you want to imagine that we have lots of text here, and if you want to see where exactly this treble clef, you just press the command button on macOS, or also like control button on other operation systems, and you just click on here, and it will highlight the text that or rather the image that corresponds to that text. And it works the other way around. Let's say you just highlight those nodes, and let's say I'm gonna press on this node, and it will highlight it will redirect the text area, and it will highlight this node. So yeah, I think it's a quite neat. All right, so I think that's what comes to the editor. Let's go back to our account. All right, so let's leave it right now empty. I'm gonna also discuss documentation, right? So there is a documentation where you can find absolutely everything you need to know on different commands. Don't be scared on large number of points here, because you will gradually learn everything, and I would say that every command here is really you can intuitively get and understand how everything works. And yeah, just I really encourage you not to be afraid of this, because you will see that it's you will get much more pleasure working with that, rather than by searching certain element on different panels, like in other applications, to drag it on canvas or something like that. So in this documentation, I'm explaining, for example, how editor works. Also, I'm explaining, I'm providing some examples, so you can see how everything works in combination. I think it's also quite important. Also, I'm talking about page structure, styles. I'm talking about different elements like key signatures, chords, notes, rests, I don't know, slurs, ties, you name it. There are a lot of, I would say it's quite rich support. Of course, there is always room for improvements, but as for now, I think that it will cover the needs, most of the needs of most musicians, I would say. So yeah, I think that's it probably. Yeah, also I want to mention the search. For example, if you type clef, you will see that it provides some options for the clefs, or you can just type treble. For example, you want to see some treble clef, and it will understand that you mean clefs, and it will also highlight those options. So yeah, pretty neat. All right, so I think that's about it. What comes to the documentation. All right, so yeah, let's open the project, and I'll try to go through all the elements, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. So first thing first, I think I want to start with page structure. So let's start with with meta information, because like each page can consist of, it can contain like titles, subtitles, left subtitles, like page numbers and other things. So let's see how it works in action. So if you wanna like type in a title, right? So all you need to do is just type title is, and then just provide the value here. Let's render it, and you will see the title is rendered like in the center. This is the only format that's supported right now, but maybe in the future I will add different formats. But I think that most people probably would prefer this format where title is rendered in the center. But of course there are also like different formats for first pages of music scores, like if it's a book, if it's a book of scores, so to speak. So of course there is a room for improvements here, but for the most part I'm quite satisfied that at least we had this, so it's not that bad. All right, so right now we can also type subtitles. Oops. All right, and it will be rendered a bit lower than title, right below. And also the size of the font will be a bit smaller. But of course you can configure everything if you want to. I'll also try to explain that a bit later. All right, so also you can like set left subtitle, right subtitle. Let's render. Yeah, I think pretty logical, I would say, and straightforward. All right, so there are also aliases. For example, for the subtitle, we use alias offer. So you can, if you would like to see like title offer in this style, how you type, so you can just, you just type offer and it will be rendered, like a subtitle, basically. There are also some other aliases that you can read about them in documentation. So I wouldn't spend more time on this. I think it's quite easy to understand. All right, so yeah, I think that right now we can talk about, for example, page numbers. I mean, all you need to do is just to type page number and let's say one of the four, and it will be rendered at the bottom. Of course, you can configure the size. I hope so. There is a style for controlling the size of the page number. Also, you can control the paddings and other stuff. All right, so I think yeah, and of course you can use any different format you wish. It will work without any problems. All right. What else? Yeah, I think this is what comes to meta information. Let's now talk about the music part of the page structure. Each page can contain lines. In Unison, you can declare them like new line, then like new line, and you will see different lines. By the default, each line contains like one stuff with one measure. So yeah, this is how it works. And let's say if you want to add on a line like multiple measures, all you need to do is just type as many measures as you want. And you'll see that the last measure on a line will cover the rest of the space on the line. It's done intentionally so that you can easily control the space on the line. There are different techniques that you can use. I will describe them later. For example, like you can compress units like notes and chords and other elements. You can stretch them. You can change the width of the page line. You also can change the font size. Many other things that you can control in order to control how many things you can put on one line. So for example, the reason why it works in this way, let's say you know you want to add many measures. So let's see how it would work, and you will see that the program will render a red dotted line here. This red line indicates where you should have stopped, right? Because like if you see that we have like left padding here, and this is where right padding should be stopped. Rather, this is the last bar line which should be rendered here. So you can easily control those things. I will show, of course, later how you can do this, and or you can just start a new line at some point in order to avoid this. And also you will see that the background page doesn't care about how many measures you put here. It just it contains, it stays the same, so you would see that something is wrong. And basically this is the main philosophy of this application, because we prefer to show you inaccuracies and errors visually, rather than telling you that you must have like certain amount of measures or something like that. So or to prohibit somehow to prohibit, so you cannot add some measures if they don't fit on a line. Of course, we will allow you to add as many measures as you wish. We'll just show that something is wrong and you got to change something in order to have music score in the way it should be. So yeah, this is what comes to the measures on the line. All right, so I think this is it. What else we can discuss? Right, so we can discuss in more depth what else we have, like in musical part of the score. All right, so we have like new line, we have measures. Each line can contain like multiple measures, and each measure can contain like multiple stuffs. All right, so let's see how it works. And you will see that we got a measure with two stuffs, and since we have only one measure, of course it will cover the whole line. Yeah, and each stuff can contain multiple voices. So let's say we added two voices, and when you render this text, you will see no changes. It's because you need to add some notes in each voice. So let's say we have ABC, and we have the same notes on octave, lower. Oops. All right. So yeah. So you will see that we have like two separate voices, and for example, you can highlight the voice, and when you press when you redirect here, you will see that it highlights different the notes in referred voice. So this is quite neat, I would say. All right, so yeah, I think this is the whole structure of music score. So each line contains measures, measures contain stuffs contain voices, and in voices you can declare many different things, like for example here notes. But of course there are different elements that not necessarily attached to certain measures or stuffs or voices, but yeah, I'm gonna explain them a bit later. This is the main thing. And also I just want to try to explain the philosophy of Unison, in the sense that Unison tries to render as much as it can, and if something cannot be rendered, it will notify you and will tell you that there is something really wrong in your text. For example, like if you type something wrong, like wrong command, let's say, it will highlight with a red line that it doesn't understand you, and when you try to render this text, it will render nothing basically, and you will see error stub, and when you click it will show you that comment and what you typed is not recognizable or applicable on line number 1. So I think this is also very how to say very helpful in order to understand what you did exactly wrong. So all right. And when when you fix the problem, let's say in this case you just want an empty page, the error stub will disappear and you will get rendered page. All right. So also, yeah, considering that what I said before, like that Unison editor tries to render as much as it can by the text you typed. So let's say we have like new line which contains measure, and we gotta have here stuff, and let's say one voice, and we rendered one note. So you will see that it's quite logical that we have one line with one measure with one stuff, and it contains one note in a voice, right? So it's quite pretty logical, but you don't necessarily need to type everything if you just want to, let's say, render sequence of notes, so to speak. All you need to do is just to type a note, and to understand it that in order for me, like as a Unison program to render this note, I gotta have like a line, a stuffs, some voice where I should put this note in, and it will understand all those things. So it works in its context, what you had in mind while you type just a simple note. So yeah, this works also with different elements. Let's say we have like treble clef. All right, so it will understand that. All right, so in order for me to render a treble clef, I gotta have like a stuff, new lines, and etc. So, and if you, let's say you right after will try to add a new clef, it will render a new stuff with those things, because it understands like, all right, so I don't usually put the two consecutive clefs on a line, so probably I need to render new stuff. So but yeah, don't get me wrong though, because like if you type like measure, a new measure, it will understand that, all right, so you need a new measure, right? Because like bass clef or treble clef, they cannot contain in itself a measure. If you want a measure, it will render a new one on the line, and if you copy those clefs, it will also render two stuffs. Yeah. Also, quite important thing, like if you, for example, type two measures, let's say, you'll get two measures, and let's say you type two stuffs here, but you don't provide any stuffs in second measure. In this case, it will also render two measures, simply because it copies the number of stuffs or any other elements in that sense from the previous measure. But if you explicitly say like in this particular measure I need only one stuff, it will render just one stuff, which is quite convenient, because sometimes you need different number of stuffs in different measures. So yeah, that's I think what comes to the basics of music structure in Unison. Yeah, also I would mention other thing, for example, like measure numbers. So let's say we have like new line, and we have measure, and let's copy this thing like 3 times. All right, so we got 3 lines of measures, and if you want to have like measure numbers, all you need to do like type measure numbers for all measures. So it will render measure numbers for each measure, but of course except the first one, because I think it's usually not rendered because it's quite clear that the first measure is the first, so you don't need that extensive explicitity, so to speak. But if, for example, you don't need to, you don't want to mention all the measure numbers, you just can specify what you exactly mean. And yeah, because by the default, you don't necessarily need even to mention that you need measure numbers for all measures. You just you can just type measure numbers, and it will understand that I gotta render measure numbers. But for example, you can type that you need measure numbers for first measures, and this is actually another feature in after completion. As you see, we have different after completions that that corresponds to the current command. So it's also quite a neat feature, I would say, because sometimes you don't need the whole all the commands for this particular command. So it the after completion understand the context of your text where you're typing. So what I was mentioning, you can type measure numbers for last measures, let's say, and it will type for last measures on each line, or you can in a similar way render only for the first measures, or you can mention that you want to type measure numbers for first and last measures. So yeah, pretty cool. All right, I think this is what comes to page structure, basic stuff. So yeah, I hope I covered everything I was planning to do in that sense for the page structure. So yeah, I think we can move to the styles. So yeah, there are a lot of styles, but I want to mention that there will be even more in the future. It just it requires some time, consideration on how proper name those styles, how to keep the backwards compatibility with different versions of the program. So yeah, stay tuned, and there will be more styles. But for now, I think I'm quite satisfied with the number of styles, the things that you can configure with those styles. So yeah, let's dive into this. So all right, so first thing first, as I was also showing before, we can configure background color. And let's say we want a white background color. So we have it. Yeah, it's pretty easy. You can also specify colors with hash codes. You can read more about them on the internet. It's quite popular format of how you can declare any particular color or a tone of color. So if you really want something special for your score, you can definitely find something that satisfies your needs. So that's what comes to background color. Of course, you can configure font color as well. Let's say I want something like gray or something like that. So in order for me to see font color, let's add a title, and yeah, you will see that it's a bit gray. If you're not convinced, I can specify red color, and you will see that it works. All right, so yeah, I think we discussed font color. Font color also applicable for the let's say for the treble clef and for the notes and different other elements, but it's not applicable for the staff lines. For the staff lines, we got different style. So you can say that you want them to be black or something like that. Oops. Yeah. So yeah, I'm not sure if it's visible or anything, but yeah, I think you can see it. Let's give it a shot to the red color. So yeah, you will see that the stuff lines will be rendered um, with red color. So all right, so I think this is what comes to colors. Unison supports to music fonts. So by the default, it it supports Bravura. It's an open font, like music font. So let's say we got treble clef. Let's say we got bass clef, alto clef, and for each stuff we got the same notes. All right. And yeah, I also want to mention that Unison understands the context, of course, and if you specify a note with particular clef, it understands the positions that they should occupy on particular lines, right? So let's say this is Bravura. So let's say we want another different another font that Unison supports for the music elements is Leland. I would say it's quite similar to Bravura. Of course, there are some differences, but it has the same vibes, I would say. And yeah, of course, in the future, there will be probably more music fonts because in recent versions of Unison, I developed quite a powerful font framework, which allows me as a developer to add new fonts quite easily. Like it's a matter of 1 or 2 days. Of course, it's also requires a lot of testing, but those tests are also quite easily to adjust and to add to the system. Yeah, but of course I will add them depending on users' needs and general consideration and common sense, of course. Also, it depends on the license of the font because, like, not every music font is open, or even I'm not even against commercial fonts. Of course, I will probably gonna use some of them, but generally speaking, me as a developer I always need to be sure that the license allows me to use it. So yeah. Yeah, this is what comes to music fonts. There are also different other type of fonts, for example, like text fonts. So let's say we have like title. We can type title, and by the default, text font is not a serif, so you'll see that it's a default font. But you can also use like default not a sense, and it will render it with the same font but with different style. At the moment, we just got 2 text fonts. They're quite I would say general, and I don't know. I think, in my opinion, they're best for meta information and the text. But yeah, in the future, of course, I will add different other fonts depending, what people need, and again, just general consideration. All right, so there's also like chord letter fonts. I don't exactly remember the names, to be honest, but yeah, you can also I think set up chord letter fonts. To be honest, I forgot the names of the fonts, so let me just check it out real quick. This is why, by the way, everyone needs documentation. So let's say not exactly, but yeah, I think it's somewhere in styles. Chord letter fonts. So yeah, I can show right here. Like for example, you can specify this font. It's kind of like serif type of font, and you can also have an alternative font. it's more like sans type of font. So yeah, you can also configure these things. So yeah, we've got like text fonts, which not also work for meta information, but also for like doublets values, probably, or maybe not. Yeah, I think doublet values come from music fonts, but I think lyrics or other text labels that attach to the notes and similar stuff. Music fonts, as I mentioned, and there is another thing as card ladder notes. Yeah, at the moment, this is what all we need. I would say maybe in the future will be some, other type of fonts for different elements. But as for now, it is what it is. So yeah. All right. Yeah, another important style in Unison that comes to sizes, right? Because you can even configure the font size. So let me explain what it is. So let's say we have font size. By the default, as I believe it's 8.5, if I'm not mistaken. So let's render simple stuff. And yeah, you'll see stuff with certain font size. But if, for example, if you would change it like 18.5, you will see that it renders much bigger stuff. And what you would notice that the page width doesn't change at all. Of course, paddings and other stuff changes, but not the length of the stuff, which is, I think, quite important to allow a user to set up the page length as a separate style comment. So yeah, you would notice that that when you change the font size, the interval between stuff lines also increases, and also you would notice that the paddings of the page also increases. Everything increases or decreases depending on how you change the font size, right? If, for example, you make font size like 1.5, you even won't notice the stuff. So let's say it's 3.5. So yeah, you'll see the the page line has the same width, but at the same time the interval between stuff lines and the paddings are decreased proportionally to what you typed here. Another interesting fact about the font size, it's equals to the style which is called interval between stuff lines. So interval between stuff lines and the font size is the same thing, absolutely the same thing. I will tell you why exactly. Because I decided that everything, almost everything, there are a few exceptions like page width, absolutely everything depends on the interval between stuff lines. The bigger interval, the bigger other elements. I think it's quite logical. I think it's quite convenient, simply because for you as a user to keep everything in proportion and intact. And for example, you just want to change the font size, and you'll see that everything else also changed, and you don't need to always rewrite all the values for different styles, for different sizes. So in that sense, I think it's very, very convenient. And let me explain how proportions work in Unison. So let's say you put the interval between staff lines, or as I mentioned, the font size, it's 8.5. And let's say we have a staff, and also we got like title. So let's say we've got title, and you'll see that it gets rendered, with a certain size, which you can also configure, of course. But this font size of the title depends completely on interval between stuff lines. So yeah, for example, like when you want to configure this, let's say font like title font size, right? If you wanted to put like number 3, what it tells you? It tells you, yeah, sorry, it tells you that the size or the height of the title is 3 intervals between stuff lines. If you if you imagine these 3 lines, right, the interval between them, and you combine them like 3 intervals, and you put beside the title, you will see that it has like 3 intervals. So it allows you to kind of like configure all the styles in mind. Like, all right, if I mention title font size as 3, it's actually not 3. It's 3 multiplied by interval between stuff lines. What it actually means. It's everything proportional, and everything is based on interval between stuff lines. This is why it's quite important. So let's say you want this little title, right? But once you change the interval between stuff lines like to 12.5, let's say, it will decrease the interval between those things like stuff lines, and it will also increase the title, because this title will be also equal to the interval, but in this case those intervals between stuff lines, like 3 multiplied by 3 intervals between stuff lines. So it's I think it's quite clever, that allows you to kind of imagine what kind of like numbers, because those numbers are abstract, right? I mean, but in this particular sense, you know that when you specify something, it's actually proportional to the font size or interval between stuff lines, and you can in your head imagine approximately, of course, but with quite good precision, what kind of type of things you want. For example, let's say we have interval between stuff lines as 12.5. Excuse me. And we have a node with accent, right? All right, so we have a node with accent, and we have like certain interval between this accent and the stem of the node. So let's say you wanna a little bit, put this accent higher. So what do? You just need to type the number, let's say 1, and you just put the direction that you want to put it up on 1. But what is 1? 1 is one interval between stuff lines. And when you render it, you will see that it will be positioned up on one interval between those stuff lines. It's very convenient. Of course, you gotta get used to it and to this concept, but I think that it's much better than having like abstract numbers. And of course, let's say you want to change the font size to the other stuff, to the other number. It will keep the distances intact. I mean, the proportions and everything will be stayed at the same level. So yeah, I think it's quite important, by the way, I think. Yeah, so I'm really glad that this concept exists, and you can use it its full potential. So yeah. All right. So yeah, let's talk about the page line width, because you can control it and you can configure. Let's say we have a stuff. By the way, you can specify styles in any position, like in the middle of your text, like above, below. It doesn't matter if you're interested in that. I just prefer to put all the styles sorry, at the top, just simply because this is the most important thing that tells us how a page can look. So I think just mm, philosophically, kind of like it's right thing to do. All right. So we have a stuff, and let's say we want to control page line width, and let's say it's I don't remember by default. I think it's 100 or something like that. And this style, by the way, it's not it's not based on interval between stuff lines because I mean, of course, it could be done this way, but I just decided that it's sort of absolute number and it's better to keep this way simply because um, it allows you to be more concrete with the space you control. But of course, maybe there'll be another style that also controls the page line width, which is based on interval between stuff lines. I'm not quite sure whether this decision is final or not, but as for now, it works this way. And let's say how it works. So you can like set up as 100, and yeah, you see even the editor kind of like squeezed, and yeah, you can just render this simple little measure. Not every application allows you. And by the way, if you're not satisfied, yeah, I mean, it works in a way that when you render the preview, of course, it just renders this way. And let's say how it would look if you render a preview all the pages. It's kind of like it increases the size, but you will get the correct size once you download the your scar. So no worries. All right, so let's go back and let's say you wanna like 1000. Let's say it will also make it longer. But if you're not satisfied with this solution, like you need to scroll in order to see the whole line, you just can adjust somehow the page width, and you'll be satisfied with the fact that you don't need to scroll and you can see the whole page. All right, so yeah, this is what comes to the page line width. I think we covered that. There is another, of course, style which is called interval between stuffs. And let's say I don't remember the default number. I think it's 12 or something, but let's say we want it to be 8. All right, so let's see how it works. Yeah, and you see that it's probably decreased compared to the default setting, but let's say we can put like 1, and you will see that they're almost squeezed. And what you can notice that when you type 1, it's actually one interval between stuff lines. So this style is also based on interval between stuff lines, which is very, very helpful. Let's say you want interval between stuff lines as a 12, and when you render, the all proportions stays the same. So let's put a bit logical number like 5. All right, so as you see, you can put between those two stuffs 5 stuff lines. This is why I think it's quite useful to have this conception in mind that this style is actually based on this style. So yeah, I think it's quite helpful as I mentioned. So yeah. All right. So sorry. There is also, you can of course control page paddings. Like you can control top page padding, bottom page padding, like left and right paddings. All this information I think you can find in the documentation. I think it's quite straightforward, and you got the idea. So yeah, if you have any questions, you can reach me out the communications channels that I was mentioning. So yeah, I don't see the point to to discuss all other things because they're quite similar, and the other styles that I see in my notes are related basically to paddings and kind of like different font sizes. For example, like as I was also describing before, let's say you have a title, and and you want to control the font size of the title. Let's say you can have it as a 12, and you see it's quite big, or you can just put very little font size, and it will be rendered as you want. So yeah, and also of course you can control the default width of the empty measure. So let's say we have multiple measures. Oops. Let's render them, and you will see that the default empty width of this measure is something like this, but you can change this. Yeah, let's say it's let's put number 5, and yeah, you will see that there will be squeezed somehow. But this is the default, of course. If you put some notes here, let's say of course the measure will be stretched just because you put some notes there. So yeah, this is what comes to the empty default width. So yeah, and I think another interesting thing that you can actually, for example, hide the last measure if you don't want it to be rendered. So I think it's quite neat, but of course it wouldn't work if you type something there. If you type something, it will render it, and it will render the notes on that measure. So yeah, keep that in mind. All right, I think we covered all the styles. If you wanna to know more, you can check the documentation. You can reach me out, and I'll try to help. All right, so another thing that I want to discuss today, it's comments or side notes that I call them in Unison programs. So sometimes you want to leave the notes right in the text in an editor or in text area, and it's not something that can be rendered or something. It's just some notes that you have in mind, and you want to leave in a text so you don't forget in the future. Like for example, you can let's say you have a couple of stuffs, and you can type like comment to do add another stuff, let's say. So when you render it, it will render 2 stuffs, but it will not render this comment, right? Another alias that you can use is like side note or something. Oops. Yeah. All right. So you can do this, and also it's it supports the multi-line, so you can leave really well structured side notes here. So this concept is quite similar to the comments in the code that programmers, software engineers use as well. So yeah, I think it's a quite useful feature. And of course, you cannot kind of like navigate because it's not rendered. So it's just the text that you can leave in your text, and it's highlighted with gray color. All right. Let's go back to the music structure, and yeah, first thing probably I want to mention is beside the basics that I explained before, is cross-staff connections. So let's say we have like 2 staffs, and let's say you want to connect them with some brace or bracket. I just want to mention that, of course, you don't need to declare the whole page structure in your music score if you just need to render a few elements. Of course not. But I would encourage you to declare the full page structure or as much as you can for real scores, big scores like for, I don't know, for full orchestras or like production scores, simply because it will be just easier for you to navigate between the image and the text, since you cannot render to the text if it's not there, or rather refer to the text it's not there. And also I would say that it just keeps the scores or the text of the score more clean and intact, so you'll easily read it and understand the whole scope. So yeah, highly encourage you to declare as much as you can for the real scores. So let's say we have two staffs in one measure. Let's render it, and you want to connect to these two staffs with let's say with a brace. So a brace is a part of measure. So if you, for example, if for example you declare before the measure like this, let's say from staff 1 to staff 2, so it will render only for the first measure and it will render second measure, because as you see, this command is a part of measure. So if you want to just have one measure in this case and you want to connect them with the brace, like the stuffs in the measure, you need to put this brace right into measure, because the brace is a part of the measure. Sorry. So you'll get this result. You can also, for example, like declare only for one stuff. Let's say for stuff number 1, and it will render a little brace for the first stuff. All right, so there is also different way how you can declare numbers, not only like this. Let's say if you want to be more, I don't know, have a different format, you can say like first stuff to second stuff. Such like numbers as words, I would call them. You can use them from 1 to 10, because it's quite difficult, and it will it really affects the performance. If I, for example, would if the program would understand all the words for the numbers, right? And you don't necessarily need it. I mean, how often you create 10 stuffs in a score? Maybe someone really does that, but I mean, you can always let's say you can always type something like this, like from the first stuff sorry, to the second stuff. So yeah, it just works just fine. So this is what comes to different formats, how you can declare the numbers in a text. All right, so, and of course it works like not only for braces but also for the brackets as well, and we'll connect the two stuffs with a bracket. I mean, as you see, it's quite straightforward. All right, so right now let's see how we can declare. Let's back to the brace, and let's say we want to also declare instrument titles. Oops. So you can declare instrument title either just by instrument or explicitly say that it's an instrument title. Let's say it's a piano. All right. And by the default, it just renders for the first stuff. But you can say that you want it to be between stuff number 1 and stuff number 2, and it will render right sorry right in the middle between those two stuffs. Or you can explicitly say that let's by the way render third stuff, so it would look like this, and let's say that you want another instrument, violin, on only for the stuff number 3. Oops. So it will be rendered like this. So yeah, I think this is what comes to instrument titles. And all right, so what else we can discuss? Bar lines. All right, so let me explain how bar lines work here. For example, by default, if you declare multiple measures, you will see that they're separated by the bar line. But of course, sometimes you don't necessarily want to have opening bar line in the first measure. In this case, you can say that without start bar line. So you can say that you want this particular measure to be without start bar line, and it will not render it. So yeah. Or for example, you want let's say you want a measure to be ended with with bold double bar line. So something is wrong, I guess. Not quite sure. I think it's because you need to specify either it starts with bold double bar line or closes. Let's say it's closes. Yeah, it's closes. All right, now it works. All right, and and you will see that the second measure will end with double bar line, and of course you can also, by the way, you can specify this on a new line, and you can say that it also opens the bold double bar line, so it will be it will be rendered like this. So yeah, in this case, of course, it's this bar line looks a bit thicker, just because the previous measure also closes with a bar line. So usually it works like this. Let's say first measure opens with bold double bar line, and second one also closes. So usually this is how it's done. So yeah, in this case it works perfectly fine. All right, so let's say what can we do? And also there are different other bar lines like dotted bar line, just simple double bar line. All those things are quite straightforward and work in the same way. All right, so we can go on. I think we can also declare. We can declare repeat signs. Let's say it's like dots. So you can say that you want a repeat sign at the start. Yeah, I think that you need to declare something like this, that this is measured with repeat sign at the start. Not sure why I designed it, by the way, this explicit. Maybe in the future all you need to do is just specify repeat sign as a part of a measure, but right now I just for some reason decided that it's quite important to tell that it opens, and to tell that to use this keyword with. So yeah. All right. So, and also you can say that that the measure closes with bold double bar line and with repeat sign at the end. All right. So you will see this thing. So yeah, it's quite explicit, and of course you can navigate to the text. in a way that I showed before. So yeah, it works for every. If you see like highlighted text, like measures, like bold double bar lines, repeat signs, it means that you can actually, of course, after you render the image, you can navigate to the particular elements. Let's say you just highlighted the whole measure here. All right, so let's go on. Right now we can discuss, for example, measure fermatas, for example. So you can tell that I don't exactly remember the. Yeah, you can just say that. Let's say it ends with fermata, and it will be rendered right here. Yeah, I'm not sure that you can clarify. Yeah, yeah, I think that measure fermatas are rendered above, but I'm pretty sure that you can also declare them below. Not quite sure. Yeah, let's check it out. The documentation, maybe something will be here. Fermata over bar line. Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, you can. The particular thing about fermatas over bar lines that it's rendered right in the middle if it's a bar line in the middle. But if, let's say, if it's the last bar line on the line, it will render right at the end. So you won't, you won't cover extra space here. So yeah, I'm not quite sure how often people use like below bar fermatas below the bar line. This is something that maybe will be added in the future. We'll see. Yeah. All right. So right now we can continue. Another interesting thing, let's say tempo and metronome marks. I would say that they're right now quite rich support for tempo and metro marks, but of course there are a lot of different things that can be added as well, and this is something I'll be working in the near futures. Yeah, hopefully. All right, so let's see how you can add tempo marks to the measure. Tempo marks or metronome marks, they are actually a part of each measure. So all you need to do is just let's say declare tempo, and in order to declare a note with certain duration, you can, let's say that it's a quarter which is equals 200, something like this. So it will be rendered like normal metronome mark. Sorry. And also you can, for example, say that it's like Allegro or something, and put the braces like this, and it will be rendered like this. Particular thing, like you will see that the notes are highlighted with red color, as like notes if you would let's say declare simple notes here. So there is a similarity in that sense. And also you'll see that this metronome mark is adjusted to the depending on how high those notes or other elements in the measure. Let's say I want to do something like this, and you'll see that depending on the notes it will be automatically adjusted, but you can adjust it by yourself. Let's say you can do something like this, and you can let's increase even more, and you can like position it upper onto interval between stop lines. All right. Also, you can, for example, say that this node is dotted or something like this, and it will be rendered with a dot. So yeah, what else? Like you can, of course, declare many other things here, even some like even things that don't make any sense, but just in order to see how they get rendered. And you can navigate to particular nodes here. So, or to the whole metronome mark. All right, so I think that this is what comes to tempos and metronome marks. All right, so each measure also can contain like coda, let's say. You can also tell, for example, that at the end of the measure, or let's say at the start of the measure, like specify a concrete position of our coda. Like you can also say that you can also in a similar way tell about the sign. Let's say it's at the end of the measure. This doesn't make much sense right now, but just to show. And of course, once you declare those things, it's automatically adjusted. For example, right here, it's just it understands that there is something higher than stuffs, but of course you can manually fix it. Just I think I haven't considered the fact that probably for this particular elements it should be like adjusted properly, but sometimes it's just the behavior by the default. So maybe there's certain exceptions, but it's not like often you see coda and segment in one measure. I don't think that makes a lot of sense, but you can adjust it. Like let's say you can tell like I want to be 6 down or something like that, or maybe not that low, like 5, and it will be adjusted as fine. All right, so this is what comes to codas and signs. All right, so let's continue. Yeah, of course you can like declare other repetition nodes. Like I don't know. I'm not quite sure how it's called. I think it's called like note, something like this, or repetition note. I'm not quite sure. Yeah, let's check it out, the documentation, because I don't exactly remember that. Yeah, it's called like the repetition note. All right. Yeah, I think I made a typo. This is why it didn't work. All right. So yeah, it will be rendered like this, and you can also mention that it's it belongs at the end of the measure, so it will be rendered right here. And of course, you can control the vertical position of this repetition node. So yeah, I think it's quite straightforward. All right, so let's continue. Let's continue with volta brackets. So let's say we have a couple of measures, and yeah, so let me explain a bit more cross measure elements, because it's kind of like important, and it works a bit different than the general page structure. So in general, we have pages with new lines, right? We can have like multiple new lines, and in those lines we can have like multiple measures, stuffs, and etc. But this, what comes to like cross-stuff connections, or rather cross-measure connections, like volta brackets, for example, you'll see that they work either for a particular line, on the last line where you declare those elements, or you can specify the line which those cross measure elements are applicable to. So let's say we have here a new line, and let's say we declare a new one. So let's see how it works, and let's say here, for example, volta brackets, volta with text, let's say 1, 2, from measure 1 to measure 2. So it considers measure 1 and measure 2 on this line because you declared this command on this right after the line. So let's see. So yeah, as you see, it gets rendered right here. But if you, let's say, declare this command right here, it will be rendered here. But let's imagine that you want to declare the general structure before all the cross measure elements. In this case, you just can specify that you need volta on first on first line. So it will render volta on first line, and it will consider measure 1 and measure 2 in this first line. So this is how it works. So voila, and you see. However, you can make a trick, and you can, for example, you can, I think, not specify this, and you can say that you want to measure 3 and measure 4 in total, right? Not like in general, but here. But I think it wouldn't work because, yeah, I think it wouldn't work because it's applicable for the new line, for the last one. So yeah, you will see this error, which tells you that measure after comment from is not found on line 9 in your text. We see that line 9, and we see that the measures are not found. So this is quite important thing for you to understand. So let's say you tell something like this, and yeah, if you tell that you wanna sorry, if you tell that you wanna render volta with text from measure 1 to the same measure 1, it will, just render it to the first measure. So yeah, this is what comes to voltas. So I think it's quite quite logical and straightforward. So yeah. All right. So sorry. Let's talk about clefs, right? So we have like treble clef, of course. We have bass clef. We also have alto clef, and they're all supported. There's also like let's say octave clefs, like how it's called, yeah, with the 8 number, you can say that it's the same thing as let's say you want a 15 above octave clef. All you need to do is just tell, I think, to octaves up clef, something like this. No, it's for the different comment. Yeah, sorry about that. I don't exactly remember the names of all the clefs that I made, but you can easily find this information in the table. Yeah, it's octave down clef, octave 15 up clef, 15 down clef. There is also like different clefs, kind of variations of alto clefs, like mezzo soprano. Let's try this. Oops. Let's try this one. So yeah, this is why. Oops, sorry, something went wrong. Didn't copy. All right, let's copy this. So this is why I think it's quite important to have to have documentation, simply because you can just take a look and refresh something in mind. So yeah, so those things are supported, and of course there are some aliases. Let's say you have for the treble clef, which is called like G clef. Bass clef is same thing as F clef. Oops. And and for the alt clef, I believe it's C clef. So those are the same things. So yeah, this is how you can declare them. Quite straightforward. So all right, so yeah, and of course those clefs are part of measure. And if you want to be more specific, you can declare like stuff with, and yeah, it also would work like this. Yeah, but in this case, you can even remove this stuff and type on a new line what you want. So it also would work. All right, so let's continue. For the measures, of course, you can declare key signatures, and you can have variety of like different key signatures. Even like natural key signatures where you cancel some keys. So let's say we got app measure, and you will see this key signature in different clefs. So pretty neat. All right, so yeah, and also of course time signature, which is also as a part of measure. You can see the main key signatures. Let's say it's a C, and it will be rendered as a C. You can also say that it's a C crossed or crossed C. All right, and you will see those things rendered here. All right. So let's talk a bit more about the nodes. So how you can declare nodes? I think it's quite straightforward. You just declare their names. Let's say by the default, of course, they're all quarters, but you can change that quite easily just by typing the fraction, like the eighth nodes, and you don't need to declare for each node if the directions don't change. So another interesting thing that even though, for example, like you declare like time signature, let's say as a free 8, and let's say you want to put something else, it will allow you. It's just here you see a free 8 time signature, which basically is just a visual thing. It doesn't control your the number of nodes that you can. This thing I decided to put this responsibility of controlling the accuracy of durations and how many nodes you can put in a measure on shoulders of the user. I think it's a quite correct approach, and if you see the errors, you see them. If not, someone can catch them and point it out. So of course, some people would prefer that the program tells them that you made such a mistake, logical mistake. Maybe this is something I will consider adding in the future. But as I said, the main philosophy of Unison is that it works like pen and paper, right? If you want to write something, you will do it. It will render as much as you mentioned in the text. And another important thing about this is that you can write meterless music, which is also quite interesting feature. And you don't need to. You don't need to have the correct structure or proper structure like in traditional music. So you can do basically whatever you declare. So I think it's quite a unique approach, and it allows to avoid ugly workarounds like in that many different applications where you, for example, want to make a metroless music, but you struggle with that. So yeah. All right. So this is what comes to the notes. Yeah. Let's say you want to declare eighth note and then you want to declare a quarter note. You can easily do this. Um, you can declare them in one line. You can also separate them. Separation of the notes is done intentionally on each note can be done can be written on a new line. Simply because, like, for example, you can attach many things to a note, so it's it allows to manage the space of the text more precisely. For example, like you can add I don't know, add a kind of feature as a hash key to the note, and it will be rendered. So many different like commands, like articulations, like ties and stuff like that. So yeah, let's see how we can render chords. In order for you to render chord, you just type a chord, and you need to right now press button enter. So start a new line and declare the notes you want in this chord. So yeah, and also you can declare them, of course, on new lines, so it will work as well. And in order to separate two chords, you again just type new chords. Let's say something like this. So it will work, but of course, if you like want to also add a note, separate note also from those things, if you do like this, of course it will add. It will not be shown because like I doubled this thing, but let's say it's a C right now, so it will add this note in the last chord. So in order for you to separate this note from the last chord, all you need to do is just separate them with a new line. So it will understand that this note is not attached to this particular chord. So let's render it. So yeah, it works. So, and yeah, I will show, of course, some stuff that you can also apply for the chords, but they work in a similar way as for the notes. Something you can attach to the command chord itself, something you can attach separately for different notes in the chord or separate notes. So yeah, I think it's quite straightforward, and you shouldn't have any problems here. Also, there is such a thing like cross-staff chords. Let's discuss them. So let's say we got a chord which has like 3 notes. All right, nothing wrong here. Let's say it's declared on the first staff, and right below we have a second staff. And let's say that particular note that we want should be like rendered on the next staff. All we need to do is just say that this particular note is on the next staff, and it will render it on the next staff. This way you can create cross staff chords. Yeah, also quite easy. In a similar way, you can declare like certain note can be on the previous staff or on the current staff if let's say you have like 2 staffs, right? And you declare 3 notes, and you say that it's on the next staff. It will render like this, but I believe that for the chords, if you do something like that, let's say, I'm not quite sure because I think in recent versions I've changed that, so let's experiment, why not? let's say let's say you can also declare the whole chord on next stuff, right? So it will be rendered like this, and let's say you declare another chord, something like this, and it also will be rendered on next stuff. It will just it will be in the context of the previous chord and will also be rendered on next stuff. But if you want to render it on the current stuff where it's actually declared, you can do it like this. All right, so and yeah, it will be rendered on the current stuff. So yeah, I think that's what comes to crosstalk cards. All right, so let's talk about the rests. Rest also considered like sound units as notes or chords. So all you need to do is just, for example, declare like rest, and it will be rendered something like this. Again, by the default, it's a quarter, but of course you can configure this. Let's say it's 16th rest, and it will be rendered like this. For you, in order to kind of like control the position of a certain rest, you can do it, I think, in two ways. First way is let's say you just declare like it's a top rest, something like this, so it will be declared higher, or you can say it's middle rest, which is default behavior. It will be rendered somewhere in the middle, or you can say that it's a bottom rest, so it will be rendered below. Or you can just tell that the particular position of the note, let's say it's A, is actually the rest. So it will be rendered like this, or you can make it higher, let's say, so it will be rendered even higher. Depending on how many voices you have and how you want to structure the positions of the rest. So yeah, there are also different other types of rest. Let's say you got a measure and you have a measure rest, and I'm not sure why it isn't working. Maybe let me check the documentation again. Sorry. Let's type something like rest, measure rest. Oh yeah, you just need, for some reason I decided that in order for you to declare some elements attached to a measure, you gotta use keyword with. Maybe it will be changed in the future. It's just of course it's also important to keep it like backward compatibility with older versions. So all right, so yeah, I think why I decided to do this, because like once you declare measure with measure rest, it will be rendered like this, and of course you can like tell how many times you want this, like 3 times, let's say, and yeah, it will render it like this. But of course, if you declare some nodes here, they will not be rendered, because you already mentioned that this measure with them contains the rest, so it doesn't make any sense to declare any nodes here. So yeah, and if you, for example, declare some stuffs here, let's say of course it will understand that you need to copy measure rest in each stuff. So okay, this is what comes to rests. Let's talk about similars. Let's say we have a note and we want it to be repeated, like let's say 3 times, right? So let's check it out. So you will see that this note will be repeated 3 times, but also you can declare similars for the range of notes, of course. Let's say, oops, sorry. let's say we have multiple nodes, and we have like we can say that repeat from first node to node number 3. Yeah, I don't actually remember something like this. Maybe I gotta say that maybe I should have prepared more carefully, but yeah, let's say how it works. Yeah, similar for the range. All right, so you just declare. All right, it's yeah. This is the mistake I made because like you got as I mentioned before, a node and chords and similar other stuff. There are sound units. So in order for you to be more precisely, you need to tell that you need from the first unit to unit number 3. And yeah, and it's not repeat, it's similar. Yeah, just to be more precise. But I think that you can also use word repeat, but I'm not sure. Yeah, repeat works for the bits, let's say. But yeah, I will probably mention them a bit later. All right, so yeah, this is how it works. So you just declare similar from first unit to unit number 3, and it will be rendered like this. But of course, sometimes let's take a look at the documentation. Sometimes you need declare like sort of mixed measures, like here. All you need to do, let's just copy this example. For example, let's copy this example. Let's say you can see something like this. So in this case, we telling like we need to repeat previous bit in measure 1 from unit 1 to unit 3, as you see here. And once you mention like it's just one bit, because Unison doesn't understand exactly, it doesn't have conception of bit, but it has conception of repeats for bits. So let's say if you tell that it's we're repeating like a bit which starts from certain unit to this another unit, then it will render like simple similar mark. But if you tell that it's actually multiple bits, it will render like mixed, like this, similar. So just by typing, just by using this trick, you can change the form of how similar looks like. So yeah, you would probably learn more about similes in the documentation than from me. Sometimes when I just don't use that often those commands, I can forget, and it's okay actually to forget some of the commands, because you can easily return. And I would say that the more you use certain commands, the more easier to remember them and to keep remembering them. So I think it's all good. Right, in the documentation, I also can show you that you can, use similars for previous measures. Let's say you using like measure with similar of previous measure. Again, like using the keyword with similar, and you telling that you need to repeat previous measures 3 times, and it will be rendered like this. Or you can just say that you need to repeat two previous measures 3 times, and it will be rendered like this. So yeah, I think you shouldn't have any problems there as well. So let's continue. All right, so what else we've got here? Unit spacing, right? So this is quite important thing, I guess, because sometimes in order for you to to fit a certain number of nodes on a line, you can use different techniques, and unit spacing one of them. So let me explain. Let's say we have one measure. All right, so let's declare some nodes there. Oops. All right, so there will be rendered something like this, and let's say that we want stretch them. So for example, you don't like how they squeezed or something like that, so you can control the space between them. The interesting fact that I want to mention is how in general spacing works in Unison. In Unison, everything is done by golden ratio. So let me explain for a bit before we go deeper. So let's say we have three nodes, they're quarters, and of course the distance between those nodes are equal, right? Because they have the same duration. But let's say the first node is eighth node, and then we have quarter nodes. Oops. And you'll see that the distance between the first node and the second node is less than the distance between second node and third node, right? Let me up this node. Let me use the same node so you can see the distance more precisely, right? So you'll see that Unison understands that the minimum duration on a certain line, and it calculates that all right, we have like eighth node and we have quarter node, so we gotta have distance between eighth node and quarter node less than the distance between like quarter nodes. So if for example we're gonna add some other node, let's say the whole node, it will be rendered in the same way, because like the distance works right after certain duration. But let's say after whole node we have again like eighth node, and you'll see that the distance right after the whole node is much bigger than the distance between those quarter nodes. So let me just show you in the documentation, because I explain it there quite in details. So let's say let's see how it works. So right here, for example, right, when you declare just a whole node and two half nodes, you will see that the distances are quite similar. It's just little bit fraction that whole node gotta have a little bit more space. But when you add a quarter node, it understands, all right, we right now have even lesser duration on the line. It means that we need to increase the distance between, not like between, but rather we gotta have space after the whole node bigger than after the half node, and the distance of the half node are bigger than the distance after the quarter node. And right here you will see that the lowest duration is like 132, and you'll see that you'll see that all those distances are divided by the golden ratio. Of course, you can calculate in your head, but it's really done this way. So, and when you compress units, let's say like this, the distances will also be compressed. Let's just copy this example. So you will see that the distances are squeezed also like by the golden ratio. However, I would say that there is a minimum distance between the notes that can be possibly done because there are certain applications when you can squeeze the notes. So, I don't know, infinitely it seems like, but of course it's sorry. To me, it seems like not the best choice, of course. So, of course, you can squeeze them. Like, for example, the comment that tells you that you can compress units by by 2 times, and it will squeeze them in half, so to speak. But however, of course, there is a minimum distance that it will keep, and as you will see here, we have almost I think identical distances between the nodes. If you want to do this, of course you can. It allows you to to control space, and also you don't necessarily need to use whole numbers. You can use fractions, let's say 1.2 times, and it will be squeezed a little bit, or you can tell like 2 times, and as you see, it will be squeezed like really greatly. So they're almost yeah, they require much less space right now. The maximum number that you can use here is 5. So let's see. So here is 5, and yeah, there is no like, if you remember the distances on this line, and let's say we add like 15. Oh, you see that it even tells you that it's not possible. All right, so let's put number 5, and yeah, it works. And in the same way, you can stretch the notes. Stretch units by 5 times, and yeah, you see even it extends, and you see the thread line. So it also stretches the notes by the golden ratio. So yeah, I think the more information, of course, you can get in the documentation, like about anything else. So yeah. All right, so let's talk about centralizing units. So let's say you have the whole node on a stuff, and you want to be, is centralized. So all you need to do is just tell that you want to be your node to be centralized. Of course, this thing doesn't work in all the cases. For example, if you have let's say you have a separate voice. Let's declare a new voice where we declare other nodes. You will see that if, for example, we declare some node in a position where centralized nodes is, it will not centralize it. But if, let's say, we lower them a bit on octave, it will be centralized. So it works in a way that it won't confuse you, right? Because you don't want to confuse your readers of your music score. If it can be done like this, it will be done. But if not, if voices like collides or something like that, it will try to maximize the readability of your music score. This is what you must have in mind when you centralize notes. And yeah, of course, in the documentation, there are a lot of examples on centralizing and how sometimes it works and sometimes intentionally doesn't work. Just for the sake of readability. So yeah. All right, so let's discuss another thing. For example, like stems. Of course, right now I'm just explaining not everything because maybe it would take a lot of time, and maybe this is something I can do separately on certain details and stuff like that. But I just want to cover in general how it works, and I think the biggest thing I want to achieve in this webinar, like give you the feeling of how you can type your music and just render it, and how it can really just share this experience, and how it can be really amazing for you. If you're natural writer and you like to do this, or you're tired of other applications and you would like to try something new, I think this is something that you can try and see if it works for you or not. So yeah, so let me continue. So you can, for example, tell. So by the default, if we declare voices, you will see that let's say let's not put the C. Let's declare equal nodes here, and here's something on an octave lower. So yeah, you'll see that by the default, the stems in the first voice directed upwards, and the stems in other voices directed downwards by the default. And of course, you can, by the way, declare as many voices as you want. A funny thing about the Unison is like it renders whatever you type, and you will see that it will precisely render collided as many notes, as many voices as you declare. Anyways, so in order for you to change this behavior, let's say you can tell that. All right, so let's say I want to stem up, or rather stem down, right? If you have, let's say, one voice. All right, so let's say you have one voice, and yeah, as you see that just by declaring the stem direction for the first note, you kind of like don't need to repeat the same rule for other notes. But of course you can, if you want to change that, you can tell that the second note should be with stem up, and you see that it will be with stem up, and all the following notes will follow the same rule. Of course it works, this rule of not repeat, or I would say it works per voice. So yeah, the way that you declared, all the following notes will follow this rule only in this particular voice. In other voices, you should do the same thing. This is how it separates those. This is how you can separate the behavior between the voices. All right, so let's talk about beams. I think that another interesting aspect that maybe also can be changed in the future just for convenience, but right now I feel like in order to to use, for example, cross measure beams, I think it works perfectly in a way as it now. But like if for example we're talking about like beams in a certain measure, maybe there'll be some little improvements in this regard as well. But I'm gonna show you how it works right now. I'm quite satisfied with the way it is, and yeah, we'll see how it's gonna be done in the future. All right, so let's say we have a note, and we can tell that it's beamed with next, or you can just declare that it's beamed. It means the same thing, that current node, is beamed with the next one. And yeah, let's see how it works. Yeah, you see it's not beamed because by default the duration is a quarter, but let's say we want to declare 8th node. So you'll see that it's beamed. And you don't need to repeat the same rule. You can declare as many nodes as you want, but let's say you want to finish right here and declare other things, right? So in order for you to do this, you just declare that that it's not beamed, and that's it. It will not be beamed with the next node, so it will be separated. You will see the 2 bits are separated. So basically, this is how it works. Of course, there are other things, like let's say we want them to be beamed, right? Yeah, let me do something like this, and let me change the duration. Let's say it's 16, and here as well. And you will see something like this. But sometimes you just want to connect such structures with just one beam in the middle. All you need to do in order to achieve this is just tell you that it's beamed, or beams with one line or something like this. Or rather, yeah, I don't exactly remember the exact command for that. Let me refresh it in my mind. Yeah, as you see, it explains a lot of stuff about that. Yeah, you can tell that it's beamed with only one primary line, or you can use the word with only one line. So I forgot to tell that with only one line. So yeah, I think this is this definitely adds up to the explicit of the comment, but it's I would prefer like this. Yeah, I'm just gonna check if the after completion works. So yeah, it works in this way, so it shouldn't be a problem. So yeah, although it's a bit not in the right place, I think. Let's remove this and let's put it here, I guess. Yeah, and you'll see that we kind of separated two groups of 8 knots. Sorry, 18th knots. Yeah. Okay, so let's continue, I guess, with dots. In order for you to declare some dots, you just for the nodes, I mean, in order to prolong the duration, you need to declare, let's say, a with dot, simple like this, and it will render a dot that attached to the node. You can also say that that a certain node is dotted. It will also work this way. And you can also declare more than one dot. It will also work. So let's say you want to declare 2 nodes, or I don't know, 10 dots. Yeah, I think there is a limit. I think it's 9 as max. Yeah. So yeah, it works like this. So all right. So what else we can discuss? I think another thing before I go on, I just remembered. I think another important thing to understand is the voices in Unison asynchronized by the default. What I mean is like you don't need to adjust somehow the positions and etc. For example, if you have like the whole note in the first voice, and then like comes a quarter note, something like this, and we got separate voice with some quarter notes as well, let's say, or yeah, it will be rendered something like this. Just to be precise, let's put half note here, and at the end also like quarter note. And you'll see that the voices and the durations between them are synchronized, which is I guess quite important, and you don't need to think about it. It's done automatically, and of course when you stretch or compress units, their behavior are done in each voice. So yeah, this is how it works. Let me change the width of the editor because it's centralized not correctly. All right, so I mean for the page line that I'm working with. All right, so this is about centralizing units. Of course, more about that you can also read in a documentation. Yeah, let's talk about the keys. I think it's also quite straightforward. Like, for example, you can just tell that it's A sharp, and it will render sharp key. I think for the sharp, flat, and natural keys, you can just declare like this. Or if you want to do something more fancy, you can tell that it's with, let's say, double sharp key. You can declare something like this, or you can type something like this, and it will render double sharp key. And it supports variety. Sorry, yeah, it supports different variations of different keys, and yeah, you can also read about them in the documentation. Yeah, and about the parentheses, about the notes, let's say you can also declare them like this. You can add brackets to certain notes. Yeah, also you can declare them for the chords. Let's say you have like this, and you can type something like with parentheses, and it will render parentheses for the whole chord. And also you can, let's say, you can do something like with let's say with sharp key or the other aliases, and you can also tell that the sharp key is also with parentheses, and it will be rendered something like this. So yeah, again, quite straightforward. All right, so let's discuss ties, right? So I think that ties work in a similar way. I'm just gonna show the basic example. More complex examples I think you can find as well in the documentation, and maybe I will create a separate video on ties where I explain them in more details. So in order for you to declare a tie, you just need to to tell that it's tied with the next note, and it will be rendered something like this. Another thing that you can control, let's say it's a half note, right, and it's a quarter note, just to increase the distance, I guess. Let's say something like this. Maybe not exactly, but yeah, let's do something like this. So you can also control the sort of roundness of your tie. All you need to do is just tell that roundness is a number between 1 and 10, and let's say you want to put like 4, so make it not super round, something like this. And of course you can declare the direction So it will be rendered something like this. So yeah, and of course you can also tie cards. It will be it will be something like this. Let me increase the distance. Yeah, it will be rendered something like this. You would notice that for there is a lot of attention I paid to the details, especially for the chords with whole tones. As you see, we connect more like position of the notes rather than notes themselves. It allows you to avoid different collisions between ties and notes and stuff like that. So this is my look a bit unusual, but this is how I view should look ties. I mean, this is how I view that ties should look, simply because it allows us to avoid any collisions and any ugliness in these cases where which you can see on the screen. So yeah. Yeah, right. So also you can like declare something. Let's say that you can declare that is tied after. It means that it's of course it's extends to the end of the measure. But let's say we have like another measure here. And when we render, we see that those measures, they end after the measure. When you see this comment, it means that they tied after. And of course, it works the same way when you tell that they're tied before. Yeah, I think this is the basic stuff about the ties. And of course, if, for example, you declare that let's say you declare a chord that have like different notes, and you say that it's tied with next. It will not connect, of course, to the next note because there are no notes to be tied because they're on a different pitch. So it will render as much as it can as the main philosophy of the tool. But let's say right after that we have like those notes, and you'll see that they will be tied up. So it ties are looking for the next so to say, the next chord that can be tied. This technique, by the way, allows us to do something like I mentioned in the documentation as well. Let's take a look. It allows us to achieve something like this, where you you can tie separate notes with a certain chord. This is more pleasant to us, like the second ties here, more pleasant to look at. But yeah, you can achieve different configurations between between the chords and separate notes. So yeah, that's the basics. All right, so about let's talk about my favorite thing, slurs, which is quite difficult. It was quite difficult to implement, especially I got like S-shaped slurs and stuff like that. So when right now I'm gonna discuss slurs, but at the same time I'm gonna discuss like how you can declare the position of certain units, which is quite important. And yeah, let's dive into it. All right, so let's say we have a note, and let's say it's half note again, and 16th note, something like this. And let's say we want to connect them with a slur. So as I told you, that cross measure and slur is a cross measure connection. Cross measure connections, they work on for the last line that where you declare them, or they work on for the specific lines where if you specify the certain lines where those cross measure connections work. So for the slurs, let's say all you need to do is just to declare a slur and tell, in this particular simple example, you need to tell that you need to draw a slur from unit 1 to unit 2, and it will be rendered something like this. So of course you can also declare roundness. Let's say it's a 4, so it will it will flatten kind of like the slur. Also you can declare that you want it to be declared above, and it will be something like this. In this case you probably want to make it more round. So yeah, sorry about that. It will be something like this. So yeah, there are a lot of examples, so maybe it's better just to show the documentation on the slurs. Of course it's not something I in this case I will show in action, but again, so just to be just to show you faster the specifics. So so yeah, this is how you can declare slurs for range of nodes. And yeah, let's discuss this example. Let me just copy this example and explain it to you. All right, so as we see, if you declare certain slurs on certain lines, they will work for the lines where you declare them, right? So if you do this, there will be something. There will be it will be rendered something like this. And if, for example, we take a look like at this example here, you can actually declare all the slurs at the end, but you will definitely know for sure that where you declare like first line from the first unit to fourth unit, those positions are specifically attached to the line you mentioned here, and in this case it will render the same result. So yeah, and of course there are a lot more difficult examples where you don't only declare the line, but also you can declare the measure if you have multiple measures on the line. So let me just copy this. Yeah, you will see that once you declare the measures, the certain units positions are also attached to the units you declared. So yeah, and the same thing works for the staffs, and the same things work for the voices. So I think it's quite straightforward, but of course there are certain things that you kind of need to get used to, but also you can you can declare in a different way. For example, you don't need to mention the position of measure, staffs, and voices right after slur keyword. You can declare them more specifically right after the position of the nodes that you want to connect. So this is how they would work. Also, let's say, yeah, there also you can declare like cross staff so to speak, cross stuff slurs. Of course, simple cross stuff slurs might work not ideally for all the cases. This is why I also introduced S-shaped slurs, which is extremely difficult to implement, like in so they would curve in the right places all the notes, because I think like only Unison does it automatically just by mentioning the certain notes. So yeah. So I think we can like copy this example here, and you'll see how it's done. So let me just go through the example. So we declare a slur, right? We just need to declare that it starts above the first note. So sometimes it's quite important. And this first note is declared in the first stuff. All right, and then we need to tell the program where it actually changes the stuff. So we declare the comment that this particular slur changes stuff below second unit, right here, in a second stuff. So once we mention that, the program knows where it should bend or change the stuff. And after that, we tell the command where the slur finishes. And also, of course, we need to mention that it's with S-shape, because if we don't do this, it will be rendered like this, which is, not ideal, I would say. Yeah. Also, there are a lot of like examples, like, you even can curve S-shaped slur on the one stuff. And of course, you can also configure like roundness, like here, for example, as it mentioned, and many different aspects. All right, so I think that's it. Of course, slurs is difficult to implement and to support, but at the same time, it was quite challenging thing to do, and I'm really happy with the result. Of course, there are certain cases probably their slurs can be drawn a bit precise. I'll definitely will work on cases if there is something wrong, because this thing, it's like there's basically infinite possibilities of how curves can work for the slurs and ties and stuff like that. So yeah. And as you see, slurs also work quite good with the grace notes. There are certain things like you can attach your slur with, or at the right point of a slur, you can attach to the note body or to the middle of the stem and stuff like that. All right, so, all right. And also, like, I think another important thing here is just declaring positions of certain units that you want to connect. This is also fairly explained in a documentation, and if you don't understand something, you can read it here or ask a question in different channels. And also I'll probably create a separate video on that as well, because it's a quite rich theme to talk about, like how you can declare different units positions and stuff like that. So yeah, I think we can continue. All right, glissandos. Yeah, I think that glissandos are kind of like have two types. First type is like where you can prolong the glissando right after a certain note. Let's say you just tell that you need a with glissando after, and it will render a beautiful glissando line here. Or you can just declare some, let's say, something like this. I don't know. Yeah, I'm just mentioning this duration in order to to explain the distance. And let's say it works in a similar way, like Glissando from first units to second units. Yeah, and it will be rendered something like this. But of course, I guess it should be something like this. Yeah. So I think that this is quite simple example, but I'm just showing the basics. So of course, in a more complex music score, you would need specify more precise unit positions. But I mean, this is how it works. Um, all right, so let's talk about the tremolos. I think tremolos work in a similar way, like for as a beams. If we talking about tremolos that connect the two notes, let's say we got. Let's talk about the whole notes, right? Let's say something like this, and we can we either can declare like tremolo for a separate something like this, where let's let's put some other thing. Of course, tremolo cannot can connect to things. Let's say right after we have like 16th note, just to increase the distance and show you how it's done. All right, so let's say it's A3, something like this. So it will adjust the tremolo lines as well. Right, so I think also we can this is how it works in order to connect with tremolos. But let's say we want just to trill it's a bit different thing. Let me again check the documentation, because I think something is wrong with tremolos. I'm not sure though. For the single unit, all right. So why it didn't work? Right. Interesting. I don't know why it didn't work the first time. What I did wrong. Anyway, I'm glad that it works. All right. So you can declare tremolo for for single unit just by doing something like this, and you can also tell that it's connected to the next node. And I think another interesting part, which is kind of different from what you've seen probably, let's say all right, so I think the biggest issue here is like it doesn't show off the completion for just simple tremolo count. I get it, so probably something I need to fix it. I will fix it right after I record this video. It's always nice to another positive point of this webinar is that I can find some errors and fix them, so it's good. All right, so another aspect is that I prefer to render tremolo lines for the notes with flex, like this 16th note, simply because if I render this note here, it will not, it can cause some collisions and stuff like that, although I know it's quite unusual, sure, but I don't know, for me it looks much better. And of course I can control the height of the stem, but again, is it worth it? I'm not sure. So of course it's up to debate still, and I'm ready to discuss that, but as a suggestion and as a default behavior, I think it works much better than when the tremolo stroke on a stem. So all right, so let's talk about dynamics. I think dynamics work in a similar way. Other cross measure connections. Yeah, let's say we have first node like this and something like this, and we can of course declare dynamics like this for singular units, something like this, and you will see that it renders a certain dynamic mark over the nodes, or you can just tell that it's below, so it will be rendered below, or you can create crescendos or diminuendos that connect different nodes. So let's say we have crescendo from first unit to second unit, and it will be like this, and yeah, I think you can also declare texts. Let's say you start like something like this. Yeah, you tell that crescendo starts with with P mark as a text, as a dynamic at the first unit to second unit, and it will be rendered like this. And you can tell that it also finishes at second unit. Oops. With forte, right? Yeah, so this is how it can also work. Yeah, I think it's also quite straightforward. I noticed some inaccuracies with auto-completion here as well, but yeah, there's this is something I will definitely fix right after it. What I like actually about this tool and program, it's done very it's done very simple, but at the same time sophisticated way internally, so I can adjust anything I want in a really short period of time. And yeah, I'm really proud of the product, not only how it minimalistically looks outside, but also how it's designed internally. So yeah, what can I say? All right, so this is what comes to dynamics. Let's continue probably with pedal marks. They work in a similar way. So let's say you just want to declare pedal mark for a particular note, and it will be rendered like this. If you specify some weird text here, it will just render with default font, so you will not get anything. But if you specify like particular text, or you can do something like this, I think yeah, it will be rendered with specific font that dedicated to the pedal marks. And pedals, I think they work a bit different than other cross-staff measures because they're all attached to the notes. It allows you to, I think it allows you to just more easily declare them. As we can see, many other examples for pedals. Let's take a look. With brackets, let's say, yeah, you just let's say when you declare pedal marks with brackets, variable picks and releases, you just do them for specific notes, and they adjusted vertically quite right, and You can also tell that, for example, pedal opens with bracket below second staff, let's say. So yeah, I mean, you can control the behavior with specific nodes on different staffs. In order to draw a bracket line for a pedal, you can also use different formats of pedal brackets. Like here, for example, you don't necessarily need like text or something. You just tell that this certain node opens up with bracket below second staff, and that this particular node closes with release bracket, so to speak. So yeah. Then of course you can declare variable peaks on a certain nodes, right? Like it's shown here. You can declare texts even above the variable peaks, or different parts of the brackets, like here, for example, and here. This is also another thing that I want to mention, that release mark is sort of centralized according to the bracket line in the middle. I think it looks much nicer. Not sure, maybe it will be changed in the future, but as for now, I don't know. I kind of like it more. And also, there is another thing that you can declare pedal marks like before units, after units, as well as release marks as well. You can declare them like at the end of the measure, right after the units and stuff like that. You can even leave open brackets as well, so it also works. So yeah, there are a lot of different examples that you can learn from the documentation. So yeah, there are a lot of many details that you can grasp here. So yeah, hopefully it will be useful. Not seeing the point to copying these examples, and just want to show the whole picture. In the beginning, I just showed maybe how to work in an editor, and the whole feeling, how it feels like when you type something and render. But for more complex examples, you can just read the documentation, I guess. And again, I will probably create another webinars specifically for different elements. And yeah, once I'm prepared more carefully, of course, or just more prepared. All right, what's the next thing? I think the tuplets. Let's take a look at the tuplets. Let's take a look. So you can just declare tuplets just by telling that you need a triplet, which is tuplet number 3 or something like that, where you declare the value, and you declare the range of units. You just specify them. You can also force brackets if you want, because by default, if the range of units connected with a beam, it doesn't render brackets. Also, you can of course control the direction. All you need to do is just specify the direction. You can either use above keyword or up keyword for if you want to draw them upwards, or you can use below and down. Yeah, you can also correct the vertical position of the tuplets. You can make them open from the left side, from the right side. You can declare any values you want, and of course, those tuplets are synchronized between different voices, like here, as you see. You can exactly see how pattern work. Like for this particular quarter note, you would see that in this pattern there are two notes. Then we play this note, and then you'll see the whole pattern where it's separated. Yeah, and in this example, you'll see that the tuplets are even to the wise below. And of course, the biggest feature for the tuplets is like you can declare as many layers of tuplets as you want and create really crazy structures with them. And another interesting, of course, aspect that you can create cross-measure tuplets, which is also quite nice because you can specify particular unit positions there. Yeah, I think that another topic, like if we go along the way, it's octave assigns. Again, you can declare them for specific nodes. You can declare them for the range of nodes. It's done quite easily. I mean, you can just read it. It's just you specify that you need 2 octaves higher from like you need this range to be 2 octaves higher or lower, and it will do the job. And I think that the most simple thing is like articulations. You just declare the name of articulation right after the note, and of course they work for the chords in the same way. You just declare the particular articulation right after the chord keyword. So yeah. Let's take a look at the ornaments. They work in a similar way, where you can just declare them specifically for notes. You can, for example, trills, right? You can also tell that there should be like a wave of the trill. You can control the direction and the vertical position of a trill. Like here, you can like make it higher, lower. In a similar way, you can adjust mordants, and of course, you can declare the keys for the mordants as well. So yeah, and of course, adjust the vertical positions. The same works for turns. You can create simple turns like here, or you can create inverted turns, and you can add like the keys as well for them. You can put them right after the notes, and yeah, and also of course you can create structures with the grace notes and the slurs. So yeah, in order to declare ghost units, you just need to mention that this particular note is a ghost, or you can declare the whole chord as a ghost. Also, you can declare specific notes in a chord as ghosts notes. So yeah, I don't think it's that difficult. So yeah. Another thing about grace notes, again, you just declare them that they're grace, and of course the synchronizations work in a way that grace notes don't have like certain durations, I would say, and you see that they're all synchronized correctly. So, and another thing about grace notes is that you can declare any grace notes, and all the elements, articulations like dynamics, marks, and stuff like that, they're all adjusted properly for the grace notes as well. So, and as like articulations, you can also declare like text labels for the particular notes or even chords. You can declare the direction where you want to put them, like up, below, or beside, and they're also synchronized in a way that they don't collide. yeah, so and there is also like they use the font if the value that you mention in the text label in a range of particular symbols of the music font you chose. So yeah. Another thing like lyrics, they're also attached to the notes, and for example, in the more complex cases where, for example, you use dashes, you need to do is just declare like that particular note with lyrics, some syllable, and it followed by dash, and it will be rendered right in the center. You can also declare underscores that where they start, where they finish, and stuff like that. You can yeah, there are several examples. You can also you can adjust in this funny way the vertical position of each syllable in the lyrics. Also, you can add many layers of lyrics, and yeah, this is how basically it works. And in the same way, I guess it works for the card letters. There is a specific syntax for you in order to use subscript or superscripts. So you can see a lot of examples. So yeah, I don't think that it's that difficult. So you can see like a table how you can declare certain elements, and they'll be rendered. Let's take a look at arpeggiated chords. You can declare them like in different ways. You can also declare them with errors, like up error, down error, arrow. Sorry, and you can also declare that you wanna prolong this wave, arpeggiated wave amongst multiple chords below, or even among the multiple stuffs. So you can do it. So yeah, let's take a look at the breath marks. You can easily add a breath mark to a certain note. All you need to do is just tell like certain note with breath mark before, so it will render breath mark before, and you can declare even like the form, like you want to be like a comma or double slashes. So there is a choice here. And in the same way, it works like mid-measure clefs. You need just to declare that a certain note is followed by rather like there is a mid-measure clef before a certain note. Of course, there is not support for mid-measure clefs, like I don't know, at the end of the measure at the moment, but this is something maybe added in the future. But generally speaking, like in most of the cases, you need measures between notes. So yeah, and of course they work, in a way that synchronization don't ruin just because you added a mid-measure clef. And in a similar way, you can also work with the mid-measure key signatures. And I already talked about the different handling of errors, because like there are syntax errors where you type something wrong, and also logical errors, for example, where you want to declare slurs from certain unit to a certain unit, but some of the units either don't exist, or you determined the position of certain units incorrectly. So all sorts of those things yeah, I think it's also done in a quite clever way. All right, so I think I covered everything. Sorry if I, didn't show any some of the examples in action. I think it's not just that important, and it's already took quite a while to record the whole webinar, so I was kind of like tired at the end. But yeah, probably I will create separate videos on certain things if needed, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. So hopefully this webinar showed the whole idea, and try to try to read the documentation maybe if you don't understand something, and maybe try the app itself. Maybe you really like it. I really worked hard on this stuff, and I'm willing to do even more work in the future, because there are a lot of stuff that I need to add, maybe need to improve, like in any other applications. But I believe that at the moment, like if you wanna have such experience in this way, it's the best application out there, and I really care about the quality of my work and precisions and other many aspects of music score. So yeah, we'll definitely we'll definitely strive to the perfection in that sense and make it look as professional as I can. So yeah. All right. I think maybe I didn't mention something, but anyways, you can always check it out in documentation. Thank you a lot. I will put the link to the Unison in the description of this video, and we'll probably split this video in many different parts, so you can so you can watch a certain element or certain topic. So yeah, thanks a lot everyone. So thank you for your time. Thank you, and take care. Bye.